There are cases so heartbreaking, so shrouded in mystery, that they haunt us long after the details fade from headlines. This is one of those cases. A story of love, lies, and loss. It's a case that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about family, trust, and betrayal. Her name was Susan Powell, a loving wife and mother, living a seemingly normal life in the quiet town of West Valley City, Utah. But in December of 2009, Susan vanished without a trace. Her husband, Josh Powell, the man she loved, would become the prime suspect. What followed was a web of lies, deceit, and unimaginable tragedy. Join us as we dive deep into the case of Susan Powell, a case that remains one of the most chilling and unresolved in recent American history. Background on the victims. Susan Marie Cox Powell was born in Puyallup, Washington, October 16, 1981, in a small town of just over 1,000 citizens. She was the youngest of 5 children in an intact Mormon family. Her parents, Charles and Judy Cox, were extremely proud of her. She was a vibrant, intelligent, caring young woman who always put others first. And for all she did for the people around her, they said she had this zest for life, so kind, so unassuming. In 2001, Susan met Josh Powell, a Mormon like herself. Josh presented as the perfect man, whisper quiet, reserved, and devout. They wed in 2001, and the next few years they constructed this ideal family in West Valley City, Utah. A couple years after their marriage, they had 2 sons, Charlie and Braden. To outsiders, it just seemed like the perfect family. But behind closed doors, there were cracks in the picture-perfect facade. As time passed, Susan began to feel the weight of an emotionally controlling and manipulative marriage. While outwardly Josh appeared to be the perfect husband and father, Susan's friends and family began to notice subtle signs of trouble. The crimes and suspicious circumstances. It was a cold December night in 2009 when Susan Powell's life and the lives of her children changed forever. The date was December 6th, and Susan had returned home from a night out with friends. Everything seemed normal when she left, but what transpired that night would make headlines across the nation. At about 12:30 a.m., Josh Powell called 911. He said that he had taken the boys out for a late-night drive and returned home to find that Susan was gone. He said that the front door was locked and there was no sign of her anywhere inside the house. According to Josh, Susan just disappeared, leaving behind no note, no clues, nothing. But as investigators began piecing together the events of that night, inconsistencies started surfacing. Josh's story did not ring true. Why would Susan, a devoted mother, leave her children behind in the middle of the night? Why would Josh wait hours to report her missing? And perhaps most troubling, why was he so calm on the 911 call? Authorities quickly began searching for Susan, focusing their efforts on the Powell home, Josh's car, and the surrounding areas. They discovered that Josh had not mentioned a crucial detail in his story. He had taken his 2 young children on a late-night excursion into the desert. It was an odd place to go at such an hour, and investigators began to suspect that Josh was hiding something. Over the course of the next few days, police scoured the area, but Susan's whereabouts remained a mystery. There were no signs of a struggle at the home, but the circumstances surrounding her disappearance were growing increasingly suspicious. Investigation efforts. As the search for Susan Powell continued, investigators dug deeper into her life and her marriage to Josh. They uncovered troubling information about Josh's behavior. Susan had confided in friends and family about her growing fears for her safety, mentioning that Josh had become increasingly controlling and isolated her from loved ones. Friend. Susan came in here on several different occasions saying she was afraid of what Josh might do to her, said the detective. She did not feel safe, but she didn't know how to get out. She wanted to make things work for the sake of the kids, but it was obvious Josh had her on some level. Police soon learned that Josh Powell had a disturbing past. In the years leading up to Susan's disappearance, Josh had been involved in several suspicious incidents. His former girlfriend came forward, revealing that Josh had once threatened her with violence. But perhaps even more chilling was the revelation that Josh had been hiding dark secrets about his past. Josh's father, Susan Powell, also came under scrutiny. Stephen had a strange relationship with his daughter-in-law Susan, often crossing boundaries that raised concerns. Police found disturbing evidence of Stephen's obsession with Susan, including voyeuristic photographs and a disturbing diary in which he detailed his fixation on her. Investigators now began to suspect that the Powell family was hiding something much darker. Josh was soon named the prime suspect in his wife's disappearance, but he maintained his innocence, claiming he had no idea what happened to Susan. Meanwhile, police found more and more reasons to doubt his story, including inconsistencies in his timeline of events and an apparent lack of emotion for his missing wife. The tragic outcome. Then came the unthinkable, a devastating turn in the case. On February 5, 2012, Josh Powell, who had been under police surveillance, was scheduled for a court-ordered visit with his children. This would be one of the final moments in a case that seemed to have no resolution. Inside the house, where social workers were about to visit, Josh locked the door, turned on the gas, and set the house on fire, killing himself and his 2 young sons. Josh Powell's behavior was a horrific final chapter in a long play of lies. The deaths of his sons, Charlie and Braden, were tragic but also heartbreaking, as a reminder of how much Josh's lies and behavior had taken from those around him. To this day, the fate of Susan Powell remains a mystery. While Josh's death brought an end to the case, the questions surrounding Susan's disappearance linger. Was she murdered by Josh Powell? Did he dispose of her body, or did something more sinister happen to her? The family is left with few answers, but they continue to search for the truth. Current status of the case. As of now, the case of Susan Powell remains officially unresolved. Despite years of investigations, interviews, and forensic evidence, Susan's remains have never been found, and her cause of death is still undetermined. Josh Powell's tragic end left the world with more questions than answers. Since Susan's disappearance, her family, including her parents and sister, have never given up fighting for justice. They have worked to raise awareness about domestic violence, the dangers of controlling relationships, and the ongoing search for Susan's remains. They refuse to let her memory fade. Though her case may have gone cold, Susan Powell's story is far from over. Her family continues to hold out hope that one day the truth will come to light, and Susan will finally be laid to rest. Thank you for joining us in this heartbreaking case. The disappearance of Susan Powell reminds us of the dangers that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly perfect lives. If you have any information regarding Susan Powell's case, please contact the authorities. Let's continue to keep her memory alive and honor the lives of those lost along the way. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new true crime story. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, always trust your instincts.